All right. Speaker Johnson is back dealing with a dynamic that is all too familiar to anyone who's followed his time in the big job, which is how does he get enough votes, 218 votes in it with a very narrow majority, more than I think he would like. I know more than he would like, and more than some people thought. He has had to turn to Democrats to get the votes. I don't see anybody challenging him for speaker. So I think he will be speaker, but he will have a number of instances, including, I'm amazed people aren't talking about this more, raising the debt ceiling, where he's going to have to figure out where he gets the votes to get done what he needs to get done. And you see, just in the attempts to pass this spending bill, you see the normal dynamic, which is the moderates complain, the Freedom Caucus complains. You've got the three people he put on the Rules Committee complaining. So I assume he's going to be able to pass this either with all Republican votes or with putting on the floor if he can't get a rule, putting on the floor and getting 2/3. But uh, he is facing a new kind of criticism, which is not just from within the conference, but with major players outside, particularly one, Musk, who responded to a tweet from uh, from Vivek Ramaswamy about the text of the bill. Put up that tweet, please, that pair of tweets. So Ramaswamy tweets that he's reading the bill and he's basically saying he expects every member to do it too. And Musk just says the bill should not pass. So here you have an ally, a close ally of President Trump, pretty influential with lots of Twitter followers, saying the bill that Speaker Johnson, another ally of President Trump, wants to pass, even though he sees flaws in it. So Speaker Johnson was out doing a couple cable news interviews today. First, here he is on Newsmax.
I know that you've been getting a lot of pushback from your colleagues on this, but why do you feel this is the best package right now?
Well, this is about the only thing we can do. And let me explain what's happening here. I don't disagree with anything that my friends there just said because I'm a fiscal conservative as well. Remember, at this moment, we only have control of one half of 1/3 of the federal government. We have a razor-thin Republican majority in only one chamber. All this changes in January, of course, thankfully because of the election. But right now, we got to do this short-term funding measure to get us to March 14th. This was the conservative play call. We don't normally like what's called a continuing resolution, a CR, but in this case it makes sense because if we push it into the first quarter of next year, then we have a Republican-controlled Congress and President Donald J. Trump back in the White House will be able to have more say over the funding decisions for 2025. Now, that would have been an easier thing to do, but then we had circumstances outside of our control. We had these emergencies that are required. So we had, as you know, a record hurricane season. We had Helene and Milton, and they just did massive destruction across our red states, frankly, in the southeast and the eastern side of the country. And then we've had farmers who are in jeopardy of permanently going under. They've had 3 lost years in a row because of Bidenomics and inflation and other circumstances outside of their control. And so when you cobble those two things together, there's a desperate need for that aid, and that's what adds another $100+ billion to the bill, and that's why everybody's uncomfortable with it. I am too.
All right. A parenthetical makes me sick to my stomach when politicians of either party refer to parts of the country as red or blue in the context of government programs. It's just crazy that they do
In
that.
context, look, I
Hold,
of an
hold on,
emergency.
hold on. I'm not done introducing you. Stand by. In addition to defending the bill as the best that can be done under the circumstances, Speaker Johnson also, in both interviews, referred to Elon Musk and suggested, despite Musk's posting on the X platform, things are all good between him and the billionaire. Put up that tweet, please. All right. So, Speaker Johnson, I was communicating with Elon last night. Elon, Vivek, and I are on a text chain together. And I was explaining to them the background of this. And then Vivek and I talked last night until almost midnight. They understand the situation. They said it's not directed at you, Mr. Speaker, but we don't like the spending. And I said, guess what, fellas? I don't either. So here's the new reality for Speaker Johnson. He's spending a lot of his time not trying to sway his own members, but trying to sway outside billionaires. So we'll talk about Elon specifically in a second. But Sean, how is Speaker Johnson going to navigate in 2025 this Groundhog Day situation of the gentleman from Texas and the gentleman from Virginia and the gentleman from everywhere, in some cases, gentle lady, basically saying we're not going to support the only game in town. How's he going to do
Yes.
that?
Well, so look, I was on a text chain last night with Dan Turntine, and not to name drop, but Dan said to me, no, look, I think this is a totally, first of all, the point that I think I agree with you on the red and blue stuff, but the reason that he did that is he was on Newsmax trying to
No, I know. I
get
know.
conservative. No, just so people
Yeah.
get this. He was basically trying
Yeah.
to say, hey guys, like this is for your people. Don't get upset.
Exactly. But it still
So
makes me sick. I
these
know that's
outside forces, I mean, there was I think Axios had this chart the other day that showed the reach of an Elon tweet versus even a Trump tweet. And I think Johnson now has to go, oh God, like they are now, like if I don't get them on board, I'm going to
yeah.
have
They're
much
the
bigger
executive
problems.
committee.
Right. So he's got to figure this out. I mean, this is going to be something might help him once Trump gets in office and he can just plead to the president, Mr. President, if we don't pass this, here's why, or here's what we're trying to do to advance your agenda. Can you weigh in? And that will be huge. But until then, he's going to have to figure out how to get by for the next, 34 days.
Dan?
Well, to all my Democrats, reason for optimism here. This is not going to change when they get complete control of government. I mean, for the last 15 years, there's a dozen Republicans in the House who want to be no. They try to find ways to get to no. It's good for their brand. They always complain that the leadership is weak. They're not pure enough. They're willing to kind of just cause trouble and get to go on, different cable channels and maybe now, podcasts to complain. I think the problem for Mike Johnson is, one, nobody fears him. So next year, he is going to have to constantly rely on Donald Trump. He's going to have to constantly go to the White House. We'll talk about Elon Musk here in a minute. But this is why some people are very nervous about two reconciliation bills, because everything, the debt ceiling, everything, Trump is going to have to start burning capital down to keep everybody on board, or they're going to have to cut deals with Democrats, which I don't think Trump wants to do. I don't think the base wants to do. I think right now there's this feeling of like Trump's on a roll. He's super powerful. We got everything. We're going for it. Well, welcome to the reality of governing. It's hard. It is messy. And this is why I said earlier in the week, for Democrats, we will have opportunities to get back in the game, get on offense, and start putting points on the board, because this is not going to change.